Watch the video all the way through. Bitcoin is going into a week where a lot of stuff's going to happen. And I'm going to be talking about, do we get a higher low above the January low, or do we invalidate that count and we're still in minor wave 4? Watch the video all the way through. Bitcoin finished the week out with a candle of indecision, a spinning top-looking candlestick. And again, we finished the week out with an accumulation signal here, and we had one previously before we had the run-up there with Inauguration Day. We had that at the January low, another accumulation signal. This shows distribution up at the December high and at the January peak, and then we now have these accumulation signals. Arrows mark accumulation and distribution. So again, we've gone nowhere here. We're in this trading range, and we never did reach the upper boundary here with the November rally, with the December rally, and with the January rally. For Inauguration Day, we stalled just going to 109,000, rather just 1,000 above that 108,000 peak. So again, I think we're consolidating, and I think we're going to end up still moving up into this upper channel line, and depending on when we reach that, that's where we're going. A number is not my target. This trend line, upper channel line, is my target. But because we've gone sideways, what I believe is minor wave 4, now we're in minor wave 5, I believe we're going to reach this level. If we reach it very quickly, then again, it could be lower. If we take our time reaching it, it could be higher. Now, I think that over the next, 5 weeks, we might be up there. Maybe we get there sooner than that. But if you get there in the next 4 or 5 weeks, again, you could be looking at, the week of March 17th or so, being up in this area where we could peak, or just right before that. March 17th would be 5 weeks from now. I believe 5 weeks, maybe 6, but I think it's 5. Again, but maybe the week before that. But I'm looking, again, if we rally over several weeks, then maybe we go up like that. We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. But again, we could take longer to reach it, because again, look at right here. We took our time. We went sideways. I do think we will reach this upper channel line, and the longer it takes to reach it, the higher Bitcoin's going to go, and that's really what it comes down to. So that's where I think we're going to top out at on Bitcoin, and then I think we're going to see a big reversal. Now, again, on the weekly chart, let me just show you what I'm looking at. Here, again, we've stalled up the trend line from the 2021 low. And that's this trend line right here. We've stalled at it at 108. We've stalled at it at 109. Got to be able to build the momentum to get above that to hit this other trend line, the upper boundary of our channel. I think that's going to happen. Now, because we've had the pullbacks, we had the pullback in December to the January low. We rallied in January. Now we've had the pullback. Now here going into February. So again, and we also have just gone sideways. So I talked about if Bitcoin were to get momentum quicker, we can reach 125,000. We could go higher than that now. So again, I remain bullish in the weekly time frame because the signals are bullish. But if we get a higher low here, or even if maybe minor wave 5 hasn't started and we're still under construction with minor wave 4, we could still test our 20-period moving average here, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But again, if we go down here, or if we get a higher low here, one or the other, and then we go up, again, you could be going into March with this, which would take Bitcoin higher. So you see, the trend line's my target, not a number. Had we reached it immediately, maybe 125,000. We're taking our time. We're still going sideways. So that is likely going to raise the objective target for Bitcoin, depending on when we come into contact with that upper boundary. And we can go into the 130,000 range. We could, go to 135, 139, something like that, if we take our time reaching it. So again, it is the trend line that is a target. Let me be clear about that. I think once we reach that trend line, everybody's going to be super, super bullish. And again, Bitcoin will likely top out at the upper boundary of that channel. Let me show you one other thing. Let me just zoom out so you can see it. Again, here's the channel. Okay, here's the trend line that we turned off of right here from the 2021 low. Okay, separating the two 2021 peaks. And if we clear that trend line, this is a trend line where I think we're going to come into contact with, and I think we'll see a Bitcoin peak, and then Bitcoin will price in a recession. And again, nobody believes we're going to have a recession. And if you listen to people, everybody's saying, oh, we were soft landing. And Powell even said in December at the press conference, again, it's clear we've, avoided a recession. Well, we're about to have one. You see, Powell doesn't believe the recession indicators. I do. Watch my videos, my other two videos on the Ron Walker channel, you'll see we're about to have a recession. Now, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Bitcoin goes back to test a 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame, then minor wave 4 may have not completed, and we're not in minor wave 5, but minor wave 4 is still under construction, and we get another push down. I told you I thought this was minor wave 4 right here, and that we've likely started minor wave 5 to push up into that upper channel. Now, again, L8 wave is speculation. Okay, I don't know the future. I am a trader. I look at support and resistance levels, get moving averages. I look at mathematically based indicators. Try to couple that and put that with Elliott wave, which again, Elliott wave, I'd never trade it. I speculate where price might go because counts can be invalidated. And I'm just telling you, this count, if we take out the January low, could be invalidated. That rather than minor wave 5 being done at the January low, we may get one more push down and then get the move back up, which would take Bitcoin even higher if that happens. So again, right now, I'm speculating that the January low has hold, I should say, that we have, again, this whole thing is our intermediate wave number 5, and I think it's unfolding in 5 minor waves, and I think we have wave 1, minor wave 2, minor wave 3, possibly minor wave 4 done here, possibly a little bit lower, and then we go higher. Or if it's done and we get a higher low, then right there. Either way it works out, I believe Bitcoin's going higher. But I'm just trying to let you know, again, L8 wave is not some Nostradamus indicator. And if you think that, that's not what it is. I just look at it and use it to validate or invalidate counts. Now, do I think this is what's going on here? Yeah, I think this is what's going on. I think we have this 5-leg push higher here, and I think that this whole thing will complete this primary wave 5. That's what I think is likely the case, okay? But that doesn't mean that this wave 4 can be invalidated. It might be that it's not done yet, and we have this larger ABC move. WXY complex corrective move. It can unfold differently. Just keep that in mind. I'm telling you what I think. I think we're probably going to get a higher low, but I'm telling you I could be wrong, and we could get a slightly lower low going back to test the 20-week moving average and then still resume the advance. But again, just taking Bitcoin longer with this corrective move, I have the guts to tell you what I think. Very few people do. Most people predict things after they already happen and say, oh, it's so obvious. I tell you, after a move's already been made, I tell you what I think is going to happen before. If I'm wrong about a higher low in the January low holding, then again, I think it comes down here and you get this divergence developing, larger divergence on indicators, triple divergence, bullish triple divergence on the MACD in the daily time frame, then we could go. So again, it could be that minor wave 4 is not done yet. I could be wrong that we have started minor wave 5, so I want to make that perfectly clear. And again, L8 wave is speculation. I'm telling you, my current minor wave 5 could be invalidated if minor wave 4 is not done. Now, again, I don't think that we come back and we start this new bearish phase here. I think that we're still in the bullish phase, but I think we're going to come up here. But I'm just telling you, my wave 4 may not be done yet. I told you I thought we were in wave 5. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong about that. So I just wanted to let you know, if we do take out the January low, it still may be that rather than minor wave 4 is here at the January low, it may be here in February. But guess what? If that happens, it likely means Bitcoin's going to go higher because, again, it's taking its time going sideways, and the target will likely rise to an even higher level. Bitcoin could go to the 130,000 range or the 140,000 range if it continues to take longer to reach this upper boundary channel line, which again, that channel line is my target for Bitcoin. If we get the blow off top, the question is wave 4 done and we're pulling back and getting the first subwave of minor wave 5, or again, is minor wave 4 not done yet and there's just a little bit more work to be done? We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. wanted to show you the Elliott wave count. Super Bowl's wrapping up here, and Bitcoin is now a few hours into the Monday session after getting a doji on Sunday and a doji on Saturday. Very, very light volume, candles of indecision. And again, right now at the moment, we're down 0.39% on Bitcoin. Have more volatility with Bitcoin, but I'm looking for Bitcoin to get a higher low above the January low. Now, maybe that's right here with our volatility we had with the tariffs, and maybe we get that a testing of that low again with the tariffs that Trump's about to announce on Monday here. Maybe we see that level tested, or maybe we get a higher low. But again, I've talked about how Bitcoin sometimes tests levels, like right here. Again, we had a low here, we tested it, went slightly lower. Here we had a low and we tested it. Here we had a low and we tested it, and then we rebounded back up. Here we had a low and we went a little bit lower. So again, you get these tests. I think we're going to get a higher low. We've already moved beyond the 60 or 78.6 Fibonacci with that low right there. Maybe that low holds, maybe it doesn't. But again, I think this low is likely to hold. Looking for a higher low in all likelihood. Again, my signals remain bearish as far as momentum in the daily time frame. Weekly signals are still bullish as far as the weekly trend. So again, I believe this is a pullback. I believe that, again, we're setting up a wave 1 and a 2 and minor wave 5. These are the first two subwaves, but I'm looking for a bottoming process. Here's my 100 period moving average right here, and we're trying to bounce off of it. Maybe we violate it, but then get back above it like we did over here. We'll be watching to see what happens surrounding the 100 period. You drop below it, you stay below it, that's very bearish. You bounce off of it or drop below it and then get back above it, that's bullish. The 10 below the 20 period, we rallied up. We continue to get rejection at the 10 period, rejection at the 10 period, and we got rejection at the 50 and the 200 as they got a bearish cross recently right there as well on the 4-hour chart. So just got to be watching. Do we get a pullback? And if we a bigger pullback, and if we do we get a higher low here? So again, continue to nail the turns. Again, called the top over here with this topping tail. We slammed into a major trend line of resistance. Again, I predicted that we bounce right here, but then I told you we're either going to get a higher low if the correction is done here, or a lower low. And if we get the lower low, I told you we were likely moving to that trend line. We hit it right on the nose and got the bounce there with the January bottom. We're going to bottom that following week, going into, which is right there on the 13th, the Monday the 13th, going into Inauguration Day. We peaked with Inauguration Day. I told you we were going to pull back test the bull flag. Everybody told us, oh, no, I got a head and shoulders, we're all going to die. And I told you it's a fake pattern. It is a fake pattern. And now we're being told we have a double top, and I think you got another fake pattern because I think you're going to get a higher low, and then I think you're going to get your push higher. We've been going sideways for a very long time here. I think you're going to get your final thrust up. That might take Bitcoin higher than 125,000 because we've taken our sweet time going sideways right here, building this consolidation. Now, I'm going to be talking about what is going to move Bitcoin next week. You need to listen to what I'm going to explain to you. And after that, I'm going to talk to you more about Bitcoin and show you some very interesting charts. Before I show you some things, I just want to talk about this for a moment. We have this trend line that's being violated now, testing our 100 period moving average from this low right here to this low right here and to the January low. That's where we bounced. We're now violating that level here with our linear scaling. So again, it could be that we're changing the trend line, and again, could be that we come back here and we redefine this trend line, or we're looking at other trend lines with the linear and the log scaling, which again, very well could be in play. Now, I'm watching a gap on IBIT on the 60-minute chart, and it's this gap from the inflation data from last month. Okay, and it's at 53.22, and I'm watching. So does IBIT, the Bitcoin ETF, does it go down there and fill this gap? And this chart looks very, very similar to the S&P. I expect the S&P is going to start playing catch up to what IBIT and Bitcoin are doing. But here's a gap right here that I'm watching. Here's a January 13th low right here with the bottoming tail. Do we come back and end up filling this gap and getting a higher low and taking out this low right here? but then get a higher low above the January low and end up completing a divergence here in the more recent price action. We have a little tiny divergence that gave us this gap higher. Again, we're probably going to see a death cross here, the 50 and the 200. We've already got it with the 4-hour chart of Bitcoin. But again, it could end up setting up a larger divergence with this low right here and taking this level out, but then still holding above this low right here. We've had some bullish and bearish divergences have given us the turns here with IBIT. So just something I'm paying attention to, this 5322 area here, and the gap fill from the inflation data last month with IBIT. Going to be watching that, and if we do end up filling the gap, you might try to bottom surrounding that level, and Bitcoin might do the same as well. Fast forward, we're talking about, let me just show you the 4-hour chart of Bitcoin. We've already got the death cross in the 4-hour time frame on Bitcoin. It's a 4-hour chart because it trades round the clock. So again, get a better, it's very, very similar to the 60-minute chart. But again, we had this low right here and we had this low right here. Does Bitcoin come back and test this low right here and then bottom out? Or does it get a slightly higher low? We'll see what happens. That's why I'm watching that gap fill on IBIT very closely. So Bitcoin had this push down here. This is now the support zone, this low right here from the tariff sell-off, and this low over here from the January low. That is the support zone right there. So again, I think Bitcoin is correcting. I think we'll get a higher low somewhere in here, either above this tariff low sell-off or just beyond it. But again, there's going to be new tariffs announced, officially announced, and we're already hearing about it here on Sunday and last Friday. Tariffs announced, but then later Trump will announce the tax cuts, and the markets may like that. Wall Street and the crypto community, they hate Trump's tariffs. They love his economic policies. They hate his tariffs. They believe they cause inflation, which they do not. And if you go watch my video, you'll understand why they do not. It's a myth. Tariffs cause inflation, and I will prove it to you beyond a shadow of a doubt. I've been talking about a divergence developing here on the 4-hour time frame with the RSI, or a confirmation of a higher low. We'll be watching to see which way it plays out. Now, it still may be a divergence because, again, you have bottoming tails over here. The RSI, you may still get a higher low and have a divergence because the RSI doesn't acknowledge and look at the tails. It only looks at the close. So you may still push down here and still have a divergence, even though it would be a higher low, because, again, the RSI doesn't look at the bottoming tails there. So, again, we'll be watching. It looks something like this, where we went lower, but we had this bottoming tail over here. You still have the divergence, but, again, got a bullish divergence developed there, but not from the bottoming tail low. So, again, it could be you see something like that. We'll see what happens, or something a little steeper, but we still come back and test this low, or maybe slightly take it out into the support zone. We'll be watching to see how it unfolds with Bitcoin, but I'm looking for a divergence to develop, or a confirmation of a higher low here on the RSI and the MACD. I think it's going to roll over here in the negative territory, and I think you're going to get this divergence developing, and then I think we're going to go on our way, and I think that's going to be the end of it. And again, telling us we had the head and shoulders. I took just a fake pattern. Now everybody's telling, oh, you got the double top and we're all going to die. And again, I think Bitcoin's going higher, but then I think it will peak once we reach the trend line. Now that may be above 125,000 because we're taking our sweet time. Listen to what I'm going to be talking about right now about the economic data and the all the stuff for Bitcoin to digest next week, and then I'll show you a few more Bitcoin charts. We know from Friday that President Trump announced that this beginning of this week now, and expected on Monday, that he is going to announce reciprocal tariffs, and now it's being unveiled, being confirmed that it's going to happen Monday, and it's going to be a tariff, a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports, and this is what happened in 2018. I've talked about this at great length and detail. Now, again, probably going to get more of a freak out. Eventually, Bitcoin's going to try to bottom out and then resume the advance. S&P will likely join that advance, but S&P is behind Bitcoin. Bitcoin's already pulled back. S&P is just playing catch-up now, following Bitcoin's lead. So again, I'm looking for a Bitcoin bottom. I'm going to show you the 4-hour chart in just a moment. But again, I did a whole video about tariffs, and I totally destroyed the concept that tariffs cause inflation. Now, I'm not a fan of President Trump's tariffs by any means. I don't like them because tariffs act as a consumption tax. But to say that they cause inflation is simply not true. And if you want to know and understand why it doesn't cause inflation, go watch that video. Two videos over the weekend on my stock channel, on my Ron Walker stock channel. One was about that, about the tariffs and about how we're going to have an inflation freak out going into the highs on Bitcoin and the S&P 500, the upper channel of their weekly charts. The one I did was on the jobs report. I was telling us we're about to have a recession, and nobody believes we're going to have a recession. And yet I show the SOM rule, which has never been wrong since all the data that we have since the 1950s. It's predicted every recession correctly. The only one was in the 70s when it was triggered right after the recession began. All the other times it was triggered right before the recession began. That's why Bitcoin's going to have a major off once it does peak. But right now I remain bullish. It's going higher, although short-term signals are short-term bearish. Momentum is short-term bearish. I believe that we're going back and testing the January lows, and we're going to get a higher low and then resume the advance. But these tariffs, again, could rattle Bitcoin further early on. Then we're going to get Powell on Tuesday. We're going to get Powell's testimony. Powell's going to show up like a hawk. Sometimes one day of Powell's testimonies, the market's down, and the next day is up. So Powell's going to be testifying Tuesday and Wednesday before Congress. Going to be asked about the tariffs. He's going to make some very negative comments about the tariffs and relate them to inflation, which is false. If you go watch my video, you'll see why it's false. You know, Powell believes a lot of stuff, and they're Keynesians big time over there over at the Fed. And that's probably why they never see the recessions coming, why they didn't see the housing bubble, why they didn't see inflation was happening, and they told us it was transitory. It's because they're married to that position. Powell wasn't worried about inflation back in 2021 when it rose from under 4%, and it rose, kept rising, and in March it hit 4%, then it hit 7% by December, and going into 2022 it hit 9%, and they kept telling us it was transitory. They weren't. They were dovish back then when they should have been hawkish. Now we have a recession about to start, and they're all worried about inflation. We're about to have a recession. They should be worried about the recession, not inflation, because we're going to have the recession, and the deflationary bust is going to happen. It's going to deal with inflation. Unless we get stagflation, and if that happens, the Fed is totally hosed because there's nothing they can do. Rising inflation with a weakening economy. Economy is normally weak. The Fed lowers rates. When the economy is strong and the Fed is to combat inflation, raise rates. Get stagflation, they're hosed. Guess is we're probably going to get inflation coming back down. I think we'll see it resurface later on, but right now I think the recession will eventually deal with it, and the Fed is going to slash rates, and nobody believes that. But that's what they did in 2007. Inflation was higher than it is right now. Right now, CPI is at 2.9%. We're going to get the CPI on Tuesday. Maybe that's Wednesday. Let's check. Yeah, so here we go. We're going to have Powell the Hawk show up to 5 before Congress, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday. On Wednesday the 12th. I think I said Tuesday earlier. It's Wednesday the 12th. We're going to get the CPI the next morning before Powell testifies the second day on Wednesday, second day of his testimony before Congress. So we're going to have the CPI. Powell's going to comment on that. He's going to be asked about it, likely. Now, the CPI is supposed to come in on the cool side. It's supposed to be 2.8, lower than the 2.9, 3.1 with the core, lower than the 3.2 on a year-over-year basis. So get Trump's tariffs rattling the market on Monday, Powell the Hawk rattling markets on Tuesday, and then maybe Wednesday we start seeing some kind of rebound with the CPI coming in better than expected. Maybe. Could be we have volatility early on in the week, and then things calm down. We'll get the producer price index, which is wholesale inflation, on Thursday, and then we'll get retail sales on Friday. By the way, other things here. Also, just the unemployment rate, the 3-month moving average of the unemployment rate, which again, I strongly encourage you to go watch that. I show why a recession is about to happen. Before it happens, Bitcoin is going to peak. The S&P is going to peak. They're likely to go higher, but recession is to follow. And again, recession indicator that's never been wrong. Never been wrong. And yet Powell was asked about in September, the Sahm rule being triggered, and he dismisses it, as the Fed always does. We have industrial production. It's warning that a recession is on the horizon. So is capacity utilization. Both of those are warning of a potential coming recession. There's a lot of signals, a lot of red flags, like industrial production, warning that. We're going to get a lot of things going on. We're still seeing earnings for the stock market, but you're going to get Trump also not only announcing his tariffs now on steel and aluminum, 25%, and that includes Canada, includes Mexico. Had these in place, the tariffs on aluminum steel, back in 2018. Go through if you want to see. Again, inflation didn't go up with the tariffs in 2018 and 19. Inflation went down. Go through and I prove that. And again, we've had periods where we've had 40% tariffs in history. Inflation didn't go up. It went down. We had deflation. When it did go higher, it stayed relatively low, close to the Fed's target level. Watch my video. 2 videos this weekend on my Ron Walker channel. Go watch them. You'll see one about the jobs report and the stock market. The other one is about the stock market and the tariffs. Wall Street and crypto community, they believe the tariffs cause inflation, which they don't. Inflation is going to go higher because inflation is caused by an increase in the money supply, which is rising, and government deficit spending, which we just had in 2024, $2.2 trillion of government deficit spending. Very high in 2023. That's inflationary. Early on in the Biden administration, we had heavy government spending, deficit spending, inflationary. It did QE 2.0, also inflationary. Again, things that the Fed does influences the money supply, creates inflation. They're the ones that cause it, along with the government, in a nutshell. It's easier to blame it on tariffs, which, again, tariffs do not cause inflation. Any economist will tell you that, if they have their heads screwed on straight, you got a bunch of them that believe in a lot of myths and Keynesian economics and a lot of this stuff that's just a bunch of nonsense. Any economist worth their salt will tell you that tariffs do not cause inflation. Watch a video, I'll prove it to you. Got tariffs, a lot of tariffs in history never caused inflation. Where's all the inflation? In the 1920s and the 1930s with all these tariffs. Where? Where is it? Where was it in 2018 and 19? It didn't exist. You want to see the evidence? I'll go through and I'll show you. So go check out my Ron Walker channel. I'll try to link one of those videos, maybe the inflation one, at the end of this video. And you could go check it out. It's well worth your watch. Well worth watching and well worth the time. Understand. But Powell is probably going to show up like a hawk. Tariffs equal inflation. Going to be the message probably the first day, and it might be a second day after we get the CPI. Maybe we try to find a bottom, or maybe we still get some volatility all week. We'll see. But by the end of the week, Trump's going to start the week off announcing more tariffs, and then he's going to later on reveal his tax plan, and we could bottom out with that. The class tax cuts, renew the tax cuts from 2017. That's what their plan is, and he's going to unveil this. It was briefly unveiled by the White House press secretary the previous week. They're going to do the main unveiling. Again, the no tax on tips, the no tax on Social Security, the no tax on overtime, all directed at the middle class. You see, wealthy people, they don't work overtime. Wealthy people don't get tips. Wealthy people don't live on Social Security. These are directed at the middle class, so there's going to be a lot of excitement about that. Maybe that could be something that gives Bitcoin a bottom. So just reviewing all this stuff, because we're going to get a lot of stuff next week being unveiled. The tariffs could likely going to rattle the stock market. The tax cuts could help us fuel for the next rally. Powell up like a hawk, but then the CPI data is supposed to come in cool. We'll be watching that. A lot of things for markets to digest and for Bitcoin to digest. Wanted to inform you about all of that. And again, here we've started the Monday session on Bitcoin. Just quickly, here's that 4-hour chart, the fake head and shoulders pattern. I already showed you the other 4-hour chart, very clean, but we're getting the 50 dropping below the 200 here, so we're getting rejection. We're getting rejection at that 200 period. Here's a 4-hour chart again. Again, we rallied up to the 50 period right here. We got rejection with that tariff sell-off from last Monday, and then we rallied up here to the 50 as across the 200 here this past week here, and we're now turning there. Right now, Bitcoin again either going to set up a higher low or lower low. We'll be watching to see which it is, but again, tariffs and Powell can rattle markets very easily. The CPI data might calm things down if it does come in cool as expected. We're breaking that linear trend line. That linear trend line, we're breaking it. This is the log scaling. We already broke the trend line from those previous lows that we are now breaking on the linear scaling. If we look at the log scaling, which my trend line now moved, I love the charts, but man, I hit save and sometimes they move on me. I just locked it in here. This is a trend line that goes back to the higher low at 52,000, the September low. And again, look at this trend line that we're coming into. We hit it right here. Okay, and this is our log scaling now, not that linear scaling that we're violating that trend line, but we're hitting this one. And we could test it again, or we could violate it right here. Look at this trend line right here from these lows over here. We slightly violated that, and then we got back above it. Got a bottoming tail at that January low. We could see something like that, similar here, and still hold above the January low. Could still hold above our low from the tariff sell-off from last Monday. We'll be watching, but possible bottom surrounding our 100 period moving average. Why do I say that? Because Bitcoin follows a 100 period moving average. You drop below it and you stay below it, that's going to be bad news. You bounce off it, that's going to be good news for Bitcoin. You have these bullish divergences on the RSI and down here on the MACD give Bitcoin this rebound that we had, this MACD. I talked about this possibly developing before it ever did. If we came back and got a lower low, bounced off that trend line, I told you we were going to bounce off that trend line with the linear scaling. Now right here, I'm telling you, again, to be watching the support zone. At a higher low, that's going to be very, very bullish for Bitcoin, and then we can resume the advance. So I'll be watching this trend line with our log scaling back from the September low here. Now, with our linear scaling, again, we're breaking the trend line from the low here and the low over here. But if we exclude this low and connect this low with our recent low from the tariff sell-off, you got possibly a new channel that might develop here on our linear scaling. So I'm looking at both the linear and the log scaling, and they both seem to have trend lines that come into this area. Again, maybe we violated a little bit, and again, test the support zone of these two previous lows, the January low and the tariff low from last Monday. We'll be watching to see, and again, are we still in backtest mode right here to the upper boundary of the bull flag? Again, the fake head and shoulders pattern. I told you that's fake, and again, I think that's being proven correct now with their breakout of I predicted we were going to evolve in here to a bull flag, and that's exactly what happened. And now I think that we're in backtest mode. We broke out with rallying into inauguration day, and we're now in backtest mode. We could bottom surrounding this 100 period. And look, our 100 period is around both of those trend lines here with their linear scaling and with their log scaling, but just some possible channels. And again, if we try to rally back up into this area, again, you can go towards that 125,000 area. If we move towards the upper boundary in the weekly time frame, you may go higher than 125,000 because we have gone nowhere, absolutely nowhere, for several months now. So that buys Bitcoin more time to reach my objective target levels, and the longer we take to reach it, the higher Bitcoin can go.